Good morning, students. We are going to start one of the most important as well as interesting chapter of class 12th biology, that is molecular basis of inheritance. In the beginning, we have to look at the picture being presented, that is a photograph of James Watson and Francis Crick along with their self-made replica of DNA by wires and gauges, and you can see the feeling of achievement on their faces. For the same, they have received the Nobel Prize in the year of 1962 in physiology. So let's begin this chapter. First of all, we need to discuss about nucleic acid. Nucleic acid are the genetic material exist in two important forms. These are ribonucleic acid, RNA, and deoxyribonucleic acid, that is DNA. As you can see, deoxy means one oxygen is less in ribose sugar, then it becomes the DNA. Okay, and when it is being present in full integrated form, that will be the case of RNA. In DNA, we have four base pair: adenine, thymine, guanine, and cytosine. Uracil is not being present. Uracil is a part of RNA instead of thymine. DNA is always double-stranded molecule. However, RNA can be single-stranded as well as double-stranded. Please pen down that RNA can also be double-stranded. Obeys Chargaff's rule. We will discuss about this rule in this chapter only, and later you will understand. And RNA is not going to obey Chargaff's rule. Bases are not being modified, but in case of RNA bases, that these are nitrogenous base pairs, these are being modified. DNA is completely stable and less reactive and not hydrolyzed easily by any of the alkalis. But RNA is unstable, hydrolyzed easily by the alkalis. DNA content is constant in all of the cells except during cell division. As you know, it becomes double in number. Okay, and in case of RNA, varies from cell to cell. The lifetime of the DNA is comparatively high as it is less reactive. RNA is short-lived. DNA have no natural DNA work as a catalyst, but RNA can work as a catalyst or enzyme in case of body. Uh, Present in nucleus, mitochondria, and chloroplast. However, RNA can be present in nucleus, mitochondria, nucleolus, ribosome, cytosol. Everywhere you will find RNA, but DNA have exclusive location, that is in nucleus, mitochondria, and chloroplast. Now we are going to compare the length of the DNA. Here, bacteriophage, that is lambda, is being compared with 5174. 5174 have 5386 nucleotides of the base pairs. Bacteriophage lambda have 48,502 base pair. E. coli or Escherichia coli have 4.6 into 10 raised to the power 6 base pair. Haploid cell of human DNA comprises of 3.3 into 10 raised to the power 9 base pair. Now, student, tell me, if haploid cell of human DNA contains 3.3 into 10 is to the power 9 base pair, then how many base pair will there in the diploid cell? Simply multiply by 2, you will get the answer 6.6 into 10 is to the power 9. But the next question is not that much easy. The next question talks about the relation between genome size or the number of base pair along with that of the complexity of the organism. Is it true when the organism is getting complex along with the hierarchy, the number of base pair is going to be increased? That is always the case. This question is not being answered right now because you will get to know after the series of this chapter. Okay, so various tutorial will inculcate or infuse the brain with lots of knowledge, and then after you will be able to answer this important question. But keep on thinking. Now comes to the nitrogenous base pair. Nitrogenous base pair, as we have discussed, there are five types of nitrogenous base pair: adenine, guanine, thymine, cytosine, and uracil. These have been categorized on the basis of chemical structure, purines and pyrimidines. Purines are adenine, guanine, pyrimidines are thymine, cytosine, uracil. Uracil is exclusive for RNA. And how you are going to remember it? Simply remember the word cut. Cut for that of the pyrimidine, you can easily recall the pyrimidines, that is cytosine, uracil, and thymine. Cut, 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 and cytosine, uracil, and thymine represent these base pair. Okay, and rest are the purine. So simple. Now comes to the structure of polynucleotide chain. When we talk about polynucleotide, first of all, we need to understand what nucleotide comprises of. As you can see, it comprises of ribose sugar. Ribose sugar is always the pentose sugar. Okay, so ribose sugar is the pentose sugar along with nitrogenous base pair. These will be ATCG in case of DNA, and in case of RNA, it will be AUCG. Okay, and phosphate will remain same in both of the case DNA and RNA. And this whole moiety, that is phosphate along with pentose sugar and nitrogenous base pair, will become your nucleotide. Okay. Now moving further, first of all we need to understand the linkage between pentose sugar and nitrogenous base pair is an glycosidic linkage, and this linkage ultimately going to form nucleoside. That is pentose sugar along with nitrogenous base pair will become nucleoside. And if this nucleoside is going to form the attachment with the phosphate group, this will become your nucleotide. Two nucleotides are joined through 3' to 5' and that is phosphodiester linkage, and it becomes dinucleotide because two nucleotides are going to be joined together. When this series continue and various nucleotides are going to join with each other, we have ultimately the product of polynucleotide. As the word suggests, poly means numerous nucleotides are being joined with one another. Now come to the next part. One end of the polynucleotide chain contains pentose sugar with free OH group at 5' end, and that 5' end is very important, which is being free. And on the other side, when the 3' end of the sugar is going to be free, it is referred as 3' end. You can imagine polynucleotide as a strand, and it has two ends on the basis of the free OH and at pentose sugar. If this is at 5' end, the terminal side will be 5' and if 3' OH group is being free, the and will be 3' and. Okay, sugar and phosphate are going to form the backbone of the polynucleotide, and nitrogenous base pairs are going to be protrude out from that backbone. Okay, so let's understand this structure. This is polynucleotide, and here you can easily recognize the nucleotide, that is pentose sugar, nitrogenous base pair along with the phosphate group. And again, this is another nucleotide, this is another nucleotide, and this is the fourth nucleotide in the series. And when various nucleotides are joined together, it becomes polynucleotide. Okay, and here you can see it makes the backbone of the nucleotide, and nitrogenous base pairs are just coming out or protruding out from that backbone. Backbone is comprises of pentose sugar and phosphate, and you can see here phosphate molecule except at the end is being linked with the two sugar, and this phosphate is going to form phosphodiester linkage. This particular linkage is referred as phosphodiester linkage, and here the sugar is going to be joined with the nitrogenous base pair, and this type of association is referred as an glycosidic linkage. Okay, so I hope this diagram is quite clear to you. And here you can see if the 5 prime end of the ribose sugar is free, it is referred as 5 prime end of the polynucleotide. And if the 3 prime end is being free, it is referred as 3 prime end of the polynucleotide. Here again you can see that backbone comprises of pentose sugar and with phosphate group. And when the phosphate group is going to be joined with both the and to the ribose sugar, it is referred as phosphodiester linkage. And N-glycosidic linkage is that linkage when the nitrogenous base pair is joined with that of the pentose sugar. This linkage, nitrogenous base pair is joined with that of the pentose sugar, it will be N-glycosidic linkage. Okay. Now comes to the selling feature of the double helical structure of DNA. The DNA model being proposed by Watson Crick is not all of a sudden. It being the product of various studies done at the prior hand by Morris Wilkin, Rosalind Franklin, and later on we will study about Chargaff's rule. So these studies ultimately created the background for the double helical structure of Watson and Crick. First of all, this concrete study about the DNA was done by Morris Wilkins and Rosalind Franklin, and you can see this type of X-ray diffraction study has been performed by them. And this ultimately led to the double helical structure, which is quite different from the X-ray diffraction, was created and deciphered by Watson and Crick. Now comes to the Chargaff's rule. As we have talked little bit about it, but we have to deal in a very holistic manner here. Chargaff's rule says that the number of adenine is always equal to that of the thymine, and guanine will always equal to that of the cytosine. Why it is so? As later on it was found out that A always base pair with that of the T, and two hydrogen bond are being there in the attachment, and C is joined with that of the G with three hydrogen bonds. So wherever there will be A, there will always be T in the other helical. So the number will always remain equal, and here also the number of C will always equal to that of the G. So the ratio of purines upon pyrimidine will always be 1. Okay, that is A plus G upon my T plus C in case of DNA. And here you can see the percentage of adenine will always equal to the percentage of thymine, and percentage of guanine will always equal to that of the cytosine. This is very important ratio, and this ultimately led to the deciphering of a double helical structure of DNA, that is Irvin Chargaff's rule. Now comes to the structural complexity of the DNA double helical structure. Here you can see it is a right-handed fashion, uh, that is turned into that of the right-handed coil fashion, and the distance between two nucleotide will be 0.33, and the pitch, that is the distance between one turn and the another turn of the same site, will be 3.4 nanometer, and it comprises of 10 base pair. Each turn comprises of approximately 10 base pair. Okay, so here you can see two grooves. When the helix is going to be run around, two grooves are there. One will be the minor one, other will be the major one, on the basis of the distance between the helix. Okay, one group will be the major one, other one will be the minor one. Now comes to the some important aspect related to DNA. DNA is made up of two polynucleotide chain as a backbone and phosphate group, along with the nitrogenous base pair coming out of it. And there will be always a form of complementary base pairing, that is A is going to form the base pair with that of the T, and C is going to be form the base pair with that of the G. Okay, so there will be the orientation of two helix in the opposite polarity. One polarity will be 5 prime to 3 prime, and other polarity will be 3 prime to 5 prime. If two helix are there, the polarity of them will be opposite one. Okay, the diameter of the strand is always constant due to pairing of purines and pyrimidines. Adenine is complementary to thymine and guanine is complementary to cytosine. And the distance between two base pair will be 0.34 nanometer or 0.33 as we have discussed. And here you can see 10 base pair will be there in each turn, and the pitch will be around 3.4 nanometer, and two stranded are right-handed coiled. Now comes to the central dogma of molecular biology. It was proposed only by Francis Crick, not by James Watson. So always remember, central dogma of molecular biology was proposed by Francis Crick. And what it actually say? That DNA will be the prima facie for the formation of RNA in eukaryotes. And here you can see after RNA formation, there will be the formation of proteins afterwards. So, DNA is going to form RNA by the process of transcription, and RNA is going to form the protein, which is the ultimate aim of the genetic material by the process of translation. M is for that of the messenger, as it is passing the information only from that of the DNA to the RNA. So, it is the messenger, and this is the central dogma of molecular biology, and this is almost true in all of the organism except where RNA is the genetic material, as we have discussed in the case of viruses where RNA is the genetic material. Here reverse transcription actually occur. RNA is going to form the DNA. Okay, only in the case of viruses this will be the reverse phenomena. Now comes to the packaging of the DNA. When we compare the length of the DNA, it is quite enormous. In case of human body, it is around 1 meter. The haploid DNA length is around 1 meter. How it is being fixed into the microstructure of the nucleus. So we are discussing about the packaging of the DNA. First, in prokaryotes, as you know, the DNA is not found at a particular location. The region where the DNA actually found it refers as nucleotide. The negatively charged DNA is coiled with some positively charged non-histone basic proteins, and because DNA is negatively charged and it is an acid, it is going to be formed the association with that of the basic protein. DNA in nucleotide is organized in large loop held by protein. Here you can see the DNA here is forming loop-like structure. You can see in the TEM also. Here the view is quite clear. The DNA is being coiled along with that of the basic protein, but these are non-histone protein. Always remember the word non-histone. Basic proteins are there. Now comes to the packaging of the DNA. Roger Kornberg reported that chromosome is made up of DNA, and Tenton proposed that chromatin fibers look like a beads on a string. जैसे मोती होते हैं माला में, similar kind of a structure is there, and you can visualize that how this structure look like. That is beads on the string mountain. And here the DNA is being coiled along with that of the histone protein and non-histone chromosomal protein. Okay, so there are two types of basic protein, that is histone protein and non-histone chromosomal protein. DNA is negatively charged because it is an acid. It is going to form the bond with that of the histone protein, and later the unit is being referred as nucleosome. And you can see this is the nucleosome. The stone is there, and this is referred as octamer. it is made up of 8 units. That's why it is referred as octamer. And the negatively charged DNA is quite around the basic protein. And this whole structure will be referred as nucleosome. And this is the first coiling or binding of the DNA. Here you can see the vast stretch of the DNA is being coiled with the help of the histone protein, non-histone proteins, and later forms the nucleosome unit. And it is further being condensed to form the chromosome structure. So that's how 1 meter long DNA is being condensed to form a chromosome and fit into a micrometer structure, that is a nucleus. Now comes to the two type of difference, that is euchromatin and heterochromatin. What is euchromatin? What is heterochromatin? As you can see in the previous slide, here two nucleosomes are there, and one strand is quite free, still free. So this whole structure is chromatin, but it is basically divided into two forms, that is euchromatin and heterochromatin. Heterochromatin, as the word suggests, here the part of DNA which is wrapped all around the protein, and the part of DNA which is still free is referred as euchromatin. So regions of the chromatin which are loosely packed during interphase are referred as euchromatin, because they are actively going to follow the central dogma of molecular biology and ultimately going to form the proteins. Okay. Heterochromatin, regions of the chromatin which are densely packed during cell division, is referred as heterochromatin. When chromosomes are going to be stained with a Fulgen stain, the euchromatin going to stain lightly, but heterochromatin, as we have seen, they have bondage with that of the proteins. They are going to be stained very darkly. Euchromatin contains active gene. As I have told you, they are going to follow the central dogma of molecular biology, DNA to RNA, then proteins. But heterochromatin are inactive genes. They are not going to follow the central dogma of molecular biology, that is DNA to RNA to protein. This pathway is not going to be followed by heterochromatin, because this part is being condensedly bounded with the histone protein. Euchromatin do not contain repeated DNA sequence, that is the sequence ATCG is not being repeated again and again, but a heterochromatin have highly enriched repeated DNA sequences. And this is transcriptionally active, as I have told you. They are going to follow the principle of central dogma molecular biology, but heterochromatin is not going to follow central dogma of molecular biology, because the part of DNA is condensedly bound with that of the basic protein. That's all for today. Thank you, students.